Discover the miraculous story of Deborah, God's divine judge who transformed Israel's destiny. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, during a time of great turmoil in Canaan, the Israelites found themselves crushed under the heavy boot of King Jabin's oppressive rule. His iron chariots glided across the plains, a foreboding shadow that incited fear, despair, and an urgent cry for help from the oppressed people of God. In this dark hour, a glimmer of hope emerged beneath a palm tree, where Deborah, a prophetess and the sole judge of Israel, sat poised like a beacon of light amidst the encroaching darkness. Wisdom flowed from Deborah, whose counsel drew warriors and seekers alike, all longing for the divine insight that would lead them from bondage to freedom. It was in the stillness of that oppressive atmosphere that the Lord spoke to her, a whisper of divine purpose that ignited her spirit. "Send for Barak, the son of Abinoam," she proclaimed, her voice infused with holy authority, echoing through the valleys. Barak stood before Deborah, the weight of doubt evident in his posture. He was a military leader, yet fear gripped his heart. "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go," he lamented, revealing the internal struggle that paralleled the clamor of his people. Deborah regarded him with a steadfast gaze. "I will surely go with you. However, the glory will not be yours, for the Lord will sell Sisera into the hand of a woman." Her words ignited a spark of hope, a whisper of victory resonating in the hearts of all who heard. The proclamation spread like wildfire, drawing men of valor to Mount Tabor as warriors gathered, eager for the divine intervention that seemed inevitable. As dusk fell, dark clouds gathered in the heavens, and thunder rumbled ominously, a harbinger of the divine warfare about to unfold. The tempest poured forth, creating chaos among Sisera's ranks as his iron chariots became ensnared in the mire. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey. I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now, let's continue with what the Lord did next. Barak, emboldened by Deborah's faith, surged into battle, a beacon of hope rallying the troops as victory seemed at hand. Yet, amid the fierce clamor of swords and cries of valor, Sisera, realizing his impending doom, fled from the battlefield, abandoning his pride and armor in a desperate attempt to escape. But what awaited Sisera in the approaching night? Would he encounter a woman whose destiny was intertwined with God's sovereign plan? Meanwhile, Deborah stood firm, her heart unwavering in the promises of the Almighty. Outside, the storm still raged, a symbol of divine intervention, an echo of glory revealing God's purpose woven through the fabric of Israel's story. As hope rose among the Israelites, the tension of divine mystery hung heavy in the air and left many yearning for the unfolding of God's redemptive design. As Sisera fled into the night, his heart raced with terror, the rumble of thunder echoing in his ears like the footsteps of an avenging army. He stumbled through the darkness, each shadow whispering the promise of his doom. Beneath a white tent belonging to the family of Heber the Kenite, he sought refuge. The Kenites, having turned their allegiance from the Israelites long before, became the unexpected sanctuary for the vanquished. Jael, the wife of Heber, heard the frantic sounds of a man in distress. Recognizing him as Sisera, the commander of Jabin's forces, she was struck with a divine purpose that stirred her spirit. "Turn aside, my lord," she beckoned, veiling her voice with feigned compassion. "Come in to me, do not fear." As he entered her tent, she concealed him under a mantle, a very act that would seal his fate. "Give me water," he gasped, the weight of his anxiety heavy upon him, "for I am thirsty." A servant's heart ignited within Jael. She brought him a skin of milk, nourishing him while simultaneously setting the stage for the revelation of God's plan. While Sisera drank, he slowly relaxed, believing himself secure from pursuit. But in that moment of deception, the heavens thundered louder, as though the very elements stirred at the will of the Almighty. Jael, recognizing the opportunity divine providence had laid before her, took a tent peg in one hand and a hammer in the other. As Sisera slipped into a deep slumber, unaware and unguarded, Jael moved with fierce authority, a weapon of the Lord. With one swift, calculated strike, she drove the peg through his temple. The iron-hardened foe lay slain, his power broken beneath the will of a woman chosen for this very hour. The prophecy spoken by Deborah came to pass. The glory indeed would not belong to Barak, but be revealed through Jael. Not far from the battlefield, Barak pressed on, convinced that victory was at hand, not realizing the climax of the battle had pivoted not on his sword, but by the hand of a seemingly insignificant woman. The cries of victory rang out among the Israelites, the sound swelling like a righteous anthem. When Barak reached the tent of Heber, he saw the gruesome sight. Sisera, the once feared commander of Jabin's forces, lay lifeless, a symbol of God's deliverance. His heart swelled in unison with the people of Israel as they celebrated the miraculous victory bestowed upon them by the Lord through his chosen instruments. In that moment, beneath the stars, the Israelites sang the triumph of God, acknowledging his sovereignty and the hidden ways in which he moves among his creation. Deborah arose as a prophetess once more, singing of the battle and the courage of Jael, her voice cascading through the heavens as a testament of divine might. But as the echoes of praise filled the valleys, a question loomed large over the congregation. Would this victory truly be the end of Jabin's reign, or was it merely a prelude to a greater work God prepared for his people? For little did they know that the time was soon approaching when God's purpose would stretch beyond the borders of Canaan, shaping not just a nation, but the very course of history. What other surprises awaited the children of Israel in pursuit of the destiny that had been woven into the fabric of their existence? Only time would reveal the fullness of God's sovereign plan. And it came to pass that after the great victory, the hand of the Lord was heavy upon the people of Canaan. For the defeat of Sisera struck fear in the hearts of Jabin's allies, and a deep murmur spread across the land. Israelites, emboldened by the miraculous act of Jael and the faithful leadership of Deborah and Barak, gathered in their clans, rejoicing in deliverance. Deborah called for a gathering of the tribes, her voice firm like thunder, resonating with authority. "Hearken unto me, O sons of Israel. The Lord our God has delivered us from the hand of our enemies. He has shown us mercy, yet we must not become complacent, for the threat endures. Jabin yet reigns, and we must seek further deliverance." The words of the prophetess stirred the hearts of many. Amassed were the warriors from Ephraim, Benjamin, and Zebulun, warriors who had seen the might of God unfold before them. Barak arose, encouraged by Deborah's vision. "Let us prepare our hearts and our swords, for our deliverance is but the beginning. What further command has the Lord for us?" Yet as they rallied strength and courage, a shadow loomed on the horizon, for Jabin was not without allies. The armies of the north were restless, and the king sought to restore his might. He knew now the power of the God of Israel, and he would devise cunning plots to crush the spirits of his people again. And meanwhile, in the desolate hills of Hazor, where smoke still rose from the remnants of his conquered army, Jabin summoned the commanders of his armies. "Though Sisera falls, we shall not fall with him. We shall regroup and build greater forces. Israel's God has shown his might, but our gods have not forsaken us. Their arrogance shall be their folly." A dark promise flickered in Jabin's heart, a heart once mighty and now constricted by the looming presence of divine judgment. His plotting would stir the dust of battle once more. Back among the Israelites, Deborah, burdened by the weight of her people's future, sought secret counsel from the Lord in prayer. She knew that their victory over Sisera was blessed, but the battle for their souls continued. At the edge of the tent, time slipped away as she awaited the still, small voice. And the Lord spoke, his words like fire upon Deborah's heart. "Rise up, my servant, for the time has come to send forth my word to the nations. There shall be another battle, greater than this, and from it a new deliverance shall arise." Fueled by divine inspiration, Deborah gathered the people. "Fear not, for the Lord has called us to be bold. We must march towards Hazor, proclaiming justice and righteousness, for God shall fight for us." As they prepared for another confrontation, the winds whispered ominously, hinting at the deeper struggle that lay ahead. A conflict not only against flesh and blood, but one wrestling against principalities and powers, one that would define the legacy of Israel. Thus the hearts of the Israelites beat with anticipation, for the Spirit of the Lord was upon them. They saw not just the battle ahead, but the promise of a greater restoration. What would this upcoming conflict reveal? And how would the hand of God further mold his people? The suspense of divine revelation lingered in the air, as history edged closer to its destined conclusion. For beyond every battle, future victories awaited, cascading like a river of promises, ready to unfold. God's sovereign plan, ever steadfast and true. And it came to pass that as the armies of Israel prepared their hearts for battle, they offered prayers unto the Lord, seeking his guidance and strength. Barak, steadfast among them, magnified his voice in supplication. "O God of heaven, grant us the courage to confront the darkness that looms over us. Let your might go forth, that we may trust in your promises." In this fervent hour, Deborah, filled with the Spirit of the Lord, summoned Barak to her side. "The Lord has decreed that the time of deliverance draws nigh. Gather your warriors, for he shall hand Jabin and his host into our hands. Seek not glory for ourselves, but let our hearts be set on righteousness." The warriors, clad in armor that glistened under the sun, moved in unison like a well-tuned instrument, a manifestation of faith that eclipsed their fears. They followed Barak's lead, mounting the steep pathways toward Hazor, resonating their war cry, a sound that would echo into the heart of the Canaanites. Each step was a declaration, a statement that the sovereign of Israel was with them. But unknown to the Israelites, faint sounds of gathering storms brewed across the northern plains. Jabin, consumed by wrath and defiance, called upon the powers of the earth, his generals clustering like vultures around their master. "Prepare the chariots, gather our fiercest warriors from every corner. The land is threatened by the insolence of Israel, and we shall quell their uprising." The hearts of the Canaanites quickened with dread as they fortified their ranks, their trust placed in the number of their chariots and their gods of bronze. Yet, even as Jabin flared his passions, the Lord looked upon the assembly of his people, sharpening their resolve like iron in fire. In the cool of the night, as the moon cast its silver glow, Deborah received a vision from the Lord. Fear not the multitude, for I shall deliver them into your hands. Let each warrior know his place, for I shall send my rain upon them, and the ground will become quagmires for their chariots. The dawn broke with a hue of promise, as Deborah and Barak rallied the Israelites. Behold, the hand of the Lord is upon us, for as we march, the very earth shall bear witness to our faith. With each stride, we reclaim our land, thrusting aside the yoke of oppression. As they advanced, a dark cloud loomed over the horizon, and the winds began to stir. The heavens opened, spilling forth rain that fell heavily upon the land. The mighty chariots of Jabin, which had instilled fear in the hearts of many, became trapped in the muddy waters. The charioteers, floundering in confusion, knew not how to turn back. With the voice of triumph, Barak shouted, "Arise, O warriors of Israel! Here lies our moment. The Lord fights for us." The clash of swords soon echoed through the valleys, like thunder rumbling across the skies. The Canaanites, unprepared for this divine intervention, found themselves scattered and retreating, fear coursing through their ranks as their trust in Jabin's might crumbled like the foundations of a house built on sand. Deborah, standing at the forefront, raised her voice above the clamor, declaring, "The Lord has orchestrated our deliverance today. He has shown that those who trust in Him shall find refuge in their time of need." Yet, in the distance, a figure emerged from the chaos, piecing together the fragments of strategy born from desperation. It was Jabin, amidst his fleeing army, an embattled king grappling with the weight of his looming defeat. The realization struck him. God's hand was indeed against him. And so, as the dust settled from the fierce confrontation, a question pulsed through the hearts of the faithful. What would become of their oppressor? And what further depths of God's sovereign plan awaited revelation? For the unfolding victory was but a glimpse of promises yet to come, whispering of a destiny yet unfulfilled among the tribes of Israel. And it came to pass that amidst the shouts of victory and the lamentations of the fallen, the men of Israel pursued the remnants of Jabin's army, their hearts ignited with righteous anger and divine fervor. Barak, brandishing his sword, led the charge, his spirit invigorated by the manifest presence of the Lord. The Lord was with them. Each breath they took echoed the promise of His unwavering support. "Let not a single soul escape," Barak commanded, his voice resolute. "For the Lord has delivered us a great victory, and we shall not let the oppressor rise again." As they pressed forward, thick clouds of dust rose behind them, obscuring the path of the fleeing foe. Deborah, resolutely standing alongside the brave men, recounted the wondrous deeds of the Lord, invoking strength in the hearts of her people. "For He has writhed the earth under our feet and has cast the proud into the depths of despair," she proclaimed, her voice resonating like a trumpet throughout the assembly. Meanwhile, at the heights of Mount Tabor, the remnants of the Canaanite host converged, seeking solace in their numbers. Their leaders trembled, uncertain of the fate that awaited them. "Shall we not turn back and reclaim our strength?" one general croaked, fear saturating his voice. Jabin, still unyielding, raised his eyes to the stars. "We shall not falter. Let of us unite in our defiance against the God of Israel," he bellowed, though doubt lingered in the heart of every man. Yet, as his words echoed back, the tide of battle swelled like an ocean, leaving him behind, marooned at the edge of despair. The very heavens seemed to conspire against him, for as his warriors turned to retreat, the earth opened and panic seized their hearts. The Lord's mighty hand moved with swiftness, their escape rendered futile. In that hour, Barak and the warriors thought upon the prophetic words spoken through Deborah, recalling the promise of God's victory and their covenantal obligation towards the oppressed. "We shall pursue them to the ends of the land," Barak cried, rallying the spirits of the people. "For it is written, 'I will make your enemies turn their backs to you.'" Exodus 23, verse 27. The confrontation became relentless. As the armies of Israel drew closer, a radiant light settled like a balm over the battlefield, a heavenly presence that caressed their spirits and poured courage into their hearts. Deborah felt the wind shift, the very essence of God's power enveloping them. "Pray, brothers and sisters, for the Lord fights our battles," she encouraged, interceding for their strength and focus. And behold, the shadows of defeat engulfed Jabin, swirling around him like an inescapable storm. Despair coated his heart, and he realized, in his futile strength, that he had stood against the Creator of all. In that moment of reckoning, the kings and armies that once trembled at his feet were now emboldened, rising up against him, yet they found no solace anywhere. As the sun dipped below the mountains, a transformation began. The once fearful Israelites, emboldened by divine presence, routed the Canaanite forces, breaking their ranks like waves upon the shore. The earth itself sang the praises of their God. The victor's cry pierced the heavens, affirming, "The Lord our God is a warrior." Exodus 15:3. And as the day drew to a close, the realization dawned upon the hearts of the faithful that this was not merely a battle won, but the unfolding of a sovereign plan woven through time. "For the Lord has declared, 'I shall establish your deliverance, and the skies shall bear witness to my faithfulness,'" whispered Deborah as she gazed into the vastness. In the silence that followed the clamor of war, a question lingered in the air. What further covenantal promise awaited the tribes of Israel, and how would they come to know the fullness of God's enduring faithfulness? For this day was just the beginning, and the echoes of destiny still awaited the revelation of God's grand design. And it came to pass that as the dust of battle began to settle, the warriors of Israel collected themselves, each heart beating in unison with the echoes of God's triumph. Barak stood among them, surveying the remnants of the Canaanite host scattered like autumn leaves across the field. Renewal stirred within his spirit, kindled by the bond newly forged through their victory. "Let us gather the fallen," he commanded gently, for he knew that even in their victory, honor must be given to both the valiant slain and their enemies. Deborah, filled with prophetic wisdom, took her place beside Barak. "The Lord has wrought victory this day, yet we must remember to turn our hearts to Him in gratitude." As the people moved to retrieve those who had given their all, she raised her hands to heaven, her voice a melodic hymn of worship. "O Lord of hosts, who rides upon the clouds, we magnify your name for redeeming our lives from the hand of the oppressor." As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, the sky transformed into a canvas of crimson and gold, reflecting the glory of the Almighty. The Israelites came together, weeping for their lost, celebrating for their deliverance. In their midst, they resolved to recount the mighty deeds of the Lord. "Let us sing a new song," Barak proclaimed, "for he has shown himself strong and mighty." In that moment, voices rose amidst the gathering, rejoicing in the newfound hope. They sang of his steadfast love and the covenant promises made to their forefathers. The timbre of praise vibrated through the shadows of despair, rekindling faith that had long been quenched by the weight of oppression. Yet in the heart of Deborah, a resolution swelled. This victory was not the end, but a catalyst for deeper restoration. "What next, O Lord?" she sought within the quiet whisper of her spirit. She turned to the people and spoke words of encouragement. "Rejoicing is but the first step. The Lord has not merely delivered us from Jabin, but He desires to refine us as gold, making us a people of His own possession." That night, as the moon shone brightly over the camp, she gathered the elders around, sharing the deeper truths of her heart. "Let us prepare for what is to come.
For the Lord has begun a new work among us, a calling to unite the tribes, to instill a spirit of righteousness, that the nations may see our God at work. And as they gathered, resting upon the promises of their God, an unsettling shadow crossed Deborah's mind. Among the broken remnant of Jabin's forces was a word of warning passed through the winds of the night. "There are greater trials ahead," she spoke with urgency, her eyes scanning the horizon. "For it is written, 'In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world.'" John 16:33. Barak nodded solemnly, recognizing the truth in her prophetic words. "Then shall we be resolute, for we know not what the Lord has in store. Yet we have his assurance. Our deliverance is near, and who can stand against the might of our God?" As the elders contemplated the growing darkness, a hunger for understanding stirred within them. "What shall be our inheritance?" they solicited, eager for clarity in the face of uncertainty. In the shadows, a flash of insight dawned upon Deborah. "The path shall unfold in his time. Yet let us remain faithful and watchful. There are alliances to forge, lands to claim, and hearts to free from bondage." As the night deepened, the flickering torches cast a warm glow upon them, but within a mystery lingered, an unseen force, both alluring and formidable. What other victories awaited them, and how would God's sovereign hand guide them through the seasons to come? The winds of change began to stir, promising revelation, yet leaving the faithful to ponder the divine narrative still unfolding. Thus, in the depths of night, as the stars twinkled above, hearts echoed with a haunting question. What further depths of God's faithfulness were they to uncover? And what would the dawn reveal of his grand design? As the dawn began to paint the sky with shades of lavender and gold, the Israelites stirred from their night of reverent remembrance. Deborah arose early, her heart fixed on the call of her God. The cool air was thick with anticipation, and she sensed that the day held significant promise, but also fraught with the weight of God's purpose. "Gather the people, Barak," she instructed, her voice steady and resolute. "The time has come for the Lord to unveil his plan. We must not remain idle in our victory. We must prepare our hearts and minds for the days ahead." Barak nodded, feeling the urgency that pulsated in the air. He summoned the leaders of each tribe, inviting them to come together as one. Unity was paramount for what lay ahead. On the communal ground, the elders gathered, their eyes reflecting the morning light, and their hearts weighing the gravity of Deborah's impending message. "Brothers and sisters of Israel," Deborah began, lifting her voice with the authority of divine calling, "the Lord has granted us a great victory, yet he has instilled within us a deeper mission. We are called to be a light to the nations, to demonstrate his righteousness, and to uphold his commands. Are we resolved to follow him with our whole hearts?" A murmur of agreement surged through the throng, hearts attuned to the sacred invitation. But as she continued to speak, an ache of foreboding weighed upon her spirit. Deborah, ever attuned to the whispers of the Almighty, had received visions of another storm approaching, enemies beyond the borders of their current victory. "I sense that our call is not merely to celebrate, but to equip ourselves for challenges yet unseen. The Midianites gather, their oppression is near." The crowd grew silent, the weight of her words pressing down upon them, the very breath of hope caught in their throats. "Fear not," Barak interjected, igniting flames of courage among the gathering. "Our God fights for us. Just as he rendered our enemies powerless beneath our feet, so too shall he do with the next adversary. We shall act in faith, for it is written, 'The Lord your God goes before you. He will never leave you nor forsake you.' Deuteronomy 31:8. Yet, despite Barak's confidence, Deborah's heart was troubled. She sensed that a deeper trial was upon them, a test not only of their might, but of their resolve and obedience to the Lord's decree. "Let us not take for granted the deliverance that has come," she urged. "Let us seek His face daily, for His wisdom shall be our safeguard as we prepare for what lies ahead." As the day unfolded, they filled their hearts and mouths with the word, declaring the promises of God. They sang praises, crafted strategies for defense, and sought counsel among the tribes, establishing leadership committees to guide the work ahead. Deborah, a mother in Israel, continued to lead with prophetic insight, forging bonds of alliance between the tribes like a skilled artisan weaving intricate patterns. Yet, in the midst of their preparations, the air buzzed with murmurs of doubt, some asking why the Lord would allow such trials after evident victory. "Is our God truly with us?" a voice ventured, rippling through the assembly. Deborah turned toward the congregation, her face radiant with resolve. "It is not in the absence of trials that faith is built, but in the presence of them. Let us recall the words of our forefathers. For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God. He desires our unwavering allegiance and our hearts set on Him alone." Just then, a watchman approached at a distance, breathless and alarmed. "Deborah, Barak, tidings from the encampment of Midian. They gather their might against us, plotting and preparing for war. It has begun. We must act swiftly." Faces turned pale, yet fervor ignited within their spirits. This was it, the beginning of a saga that would shape the destiny of Israel and test their resolve. "Call forth the warriors," Barak commanded, determination hardening his features.
"For we will not shrink back. We will meet them with the strength of the Lord." And in that moment, amidst the rising tension, uncertainty fused with expectancy. The gathering echoed with the weight of divine providence. For just as God had led them to victory over Jabin, so too would He lead them once more into battle. Alas, they knew not the full depth of His plans. What further miraculous acts awaited them on this path? And how would the tapestry of God's perfect will weave together their trials and triumphs? The stage was set for divine revelation, and the unfolding of His greater story awaited its hour in the strength of unity and faith. And so, as the sun rose higher in the heavens, illuminating the faces of the assembled warriors, the spirit of anticipation surged among them. Deborah stood at the forefront, her heart ablaze with divine purpose. "Warriors of Israel," she called out, her voice ringing like a clarion. "Today we stand not solely as men and women bound by lineage, but as vessels of His might. We go forth in the knowledge that the Lord, our refuge and strength, is with us." The men and women of valor gazed upon Deborah, their leader and prophetess, and a wave of resolve swept over them. They donned their armor, each piece a testament to their commitment. The swords glinted, reflecting not only the sunlight, but the raw determination contained in the hearts of the faithful. The sounds of preparation filled the air, a chorus of swords clashing and shields being strapped, and yet a hush fell when Deborah raised her hands. "Let us invoke the name of the Lord," she declared, "for the battle is His, and the victory shall be ours." With that, the Israelites united in prayer, their voices weaving together like the threads of the tapestry they would soon become. As the last amen echoed across the valley, a messenger rushed toward them, panting and out of breath. "Deborah, Barak, I bring news from the borders. The Midianites number in the thousands, their chariots swift and their hearts fierce. They seek to extinguish the light that our God has ignited within us," he cried, urgency punctuating his words. Barak, firm and unyielding, stepped forward. "We have witnessed the Lord's hand. We will not falter now." Yet inside, a tempest of fear and determination clashed within his spirit. Deborah placed a hand gently upon Barak's arm, her presence a calming force. The Lord has called us to rise, yet we must heed his voice even now. Are we to act alone, or shall we seek his guidance once more? She turned her gaze to the heavens, the clouds softly shifting as if awaiting a response. With hearts heavy yet hopeful, the people awaited the answer from the Almighty. A stillness enveloped the ground as Deborah closed her eyes, the breath of the Spirit wrapping around her like a mantle. He desires a sacrifice, our hearts laid bare before him. Let us fast and plead for his intervention, for our strength is not in ourselves, but in the one who fights our battles. And so they cried out, not with shrill voices, but with the humility of the broken. They sought forgiveness for doubts cast upon God's faithfulness and renewed their covenant publicly. As twilight descended, a peculiar peace settled upon the camp, entwining them in a sacred unity. During the deep silence of the night, a soft wind whispered against the canvas of their tents. Deborah received a vision, and the heavens opened before her as if revealing secrets meant for those brave enough to trust. "Behold," she murmured, "the Lord shall deliver us into triumph, not by might, but by his mighty hand." Just then, a rumble of thunder echoed through the heavens, and lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the night with brilliant clarity. The warriors stirred, their hearts racing in response to the divine display. "Do not fear," Deborah shouted, her voice cutting through the trepidation. "This is the sign. The Lord prepares the way for us." Little did they perceive that the true might of the battle would not rest solely in their own armaments. For in their humility and devotion, the God of Israel was preparing to unveil a plan even more profound, one that would lead them through the darkness into an everlasting light. Would they be ready to embrace the wonder of what was to come? For God's sovereign rescue was not limited to the blade of a sword. It lay in the quiet hearts of those who seek him. As the dawn approached, the Israelites, unified in purpose, stood at the threshold of a moment that would echo throughout generations to come, a moment that would reveal the unfolding mystery of his eternal plan. As dawn broke, the first rays of light spilled over the mountains, casting a golden hue upon the valley where the Israelites gathered. A sense of urgency tinged the air, for the hour of confrontation was swiftly approaching. Deborah's spirit, ignited by her vision, swelled with certainty. "Awake, O Israel! The time has come to march forth," she proclaimed, her voice a beacon in the fragile morning light. Barak tightened his grip around his sword, inspired by his leader's resolve and the whispered promises of the Almighty. "We shall go as the Lord commands, against the tide of our foes." To this Deborah responded, "Indeed, but remember, our God does not grant victory through might alone. He shall orchestrate the path within his ordained plan." With each step, the multitude of warriors formed a steadfast phalanx, their armor glimmering like stars upon the earth. And cries of courage rose as incense toward the heavens. The sound of their marching was like thunder, prophetic and powerful, announcing their advance to the encampment of the Midianites. As they drew near, the distant rumble of chariots echoed ominously, a foreboding reminder of the challenge that lay ahead. Campfires flickered in the enemy's camp, their smoke curling upward as if beckoning the Israelites to despair. But Deborah remained undaunted, for she had been assured that their front line was girded by the presence of the Most High. Deborah raised her voice over the clamor, invoking God's promises. "Remember the words of the Lord. He has fought for us in the past. He shall do so again.
We stand on the threshold of his deliverance. Despite the numbers, despite the fear, we are not alone. The warriors, emboldened by her declarations, lifted their shields and swords in unwavering unity. As he said in his word, "Be strong and very courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Joshua 1:9. Then, suddenly, the whisper of God filled the air, a divine instruction that coursed through Deborah. "Barak, divide the troops. Let one half align with me to face the chariots, and let the other flank the rear. For the Lord shall confuse our enemies this day." With precise execution, Barak obeyed. The Israelites split into strategic formations, each group embodying the might of faith. As the Midianites, blinded by their arrogance, prepared to unleash their onslaught, a great shout erupted from the Israelites, shaking the ground beneath them. At that moment, a storm gathered above, the heavens darkening with clouds thick as wool. Deborah knew their time had come. "Let us call upon the Lord of hosts, for our battle belongs to him," she decreed, her hands lifted high, as if reaching for the very heavens. As Barak led the charge, a bolt of lightning struck the earth, and amidst the furious tempest, confusion erupted within the Midianite ranks. Their chariots, once swift and mighty, fell into disarray, horses rearing and men losing their stead in panic. "Now, warriors of Israel, advance, for the time of the Lord's deliverance is upon us." The battle cry united them as they surged forward, propelled by the fire kindled within Deborah's heart and the promise of God's deliverance. In that critical instant, what none had anticipated was about to unfold, a revelation that would demonstrate the depths of God's sovereignty and the ultimate destiny of his people. For little did they know, the tide of this battle would not only shift the balance of power, but would unveil a greater narrative of redemption woven into the destiny of Israel itself. What further wonders awaited them upon that battlefield? For God's plans always transcend human understanding, unveiling the mystery of his will and revealing a pathway that leads to eternal glory. And it came to pass that as the Israelites surged forward, emboldened by faith and the divine hand of God, the clash of swords echoed like a symphony of deliverance. Barak moved with fervor at the forefront of the battle, a fierce warrior guided by the wise words of Deborah, his spirit fueled by the promise of the Almighty. As they met the Midianites upon the field, a heavenly wind swept through their ranks. The weight of God's presence thickened the air. Unexpectedly, confusion spread among the enemy soldiers. The very moment of divine intervention unfolded, and the Midianite warriors turned upon each other in panic, their hearts gripped by a dread that only the hand of God could instill. "Now, strike with the strength of the Lord," Barak cried, rallying the faithful as light pierced the darkened clouds. The battle that had been feared became a display of divine vindication as the Israelites fought courageously, swords raised in unison against oppression. Meanwhile, Deborah stood firm, her hands lifted toward the heavens, invoking the power of God over the battlefield. "O Lord of hosts, deliver your people from the grip of darkness." Her voice soared above the din, inviting God's faithful response. At that instant, the heavens opened wide, and a torrential rain began to fall, soaking the ground and further disarming the Midianite chariots, rendering them useless in the mire. The Israelites pressed their advantage, the momentum shifting in their favor like a river breaking through a dam. "God is with us! He fights for his people," Barak proclaimed as the sound of victory began to swell, overtaking the shouts of their enemies. One by one, the hearts of the Midianites quaked, and fear scattered them like autumn leaves before the wind.
And as the final confrontation unfolded, a greater truth arose. This battle was more than a physical conflict. It was a revelation of God's unfailing love and commitment to His covenant people. The enemies fell before the might of God's warriors, just as He had promised through His faithful servant Deborah. When the dust settled, a great silence enveloped the battlefield. The echoes of triumph rang in the hearts of the victorious as they stood among the remnants of their adversaries, witnessing the fulfillment of the Lord's covenant promise. The air was thick with awe as Barak called the people to gather around him, wearied but soaring in spirit. Let us recount the mighty hand of God that has delivered us this day. The Lord has shown mercy upon us. He has scattered our enemies before us, Barak shared, inviting Deborah to join him at the forefront. Together, they led the people in a song of praise, voices unified in gratitude. The Lord has triumphed. Our deliverer is faithful. Thus, the Israelites lifted their voices, celebrating the victory bestowed upon them through God's sovereign orchestration. The rhythm of their praise spread like wildfire, igniting hope and courage among the tribes. For within that moment of peace, every heart was attuned to the divine purpose they were called to embrace, a life of faithfulness, justice, and leadership that would shine forth to the nations. Yet from the heights of victory, an understanding settled upon Deborah's spirit.
This day is not merely for our celebration, but for preparing us for what is greater still. The Lord has called us from bondage, but our mission extends far beyond our borders. Barak nodded, his heart attuned to her wisdom. Then let us forge ahead, for we shall be instruments of righteousness, leading our people not just from oppression, but into the promise of a land overflowing with His blessings. And so the people of Israel resolved to build upon their victory, to be ever watchful, and to follow the heart of God in seasons yet to come. They gathered together, united as one, creating a covenant of commitment that echoed the promises given to their forefathers, a declaration that they would follow the Lord with all their hearts, minds, and strength. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting golden rays upon the earth, Deborah raised her arms toward heaven. Our God reigns, and should trials come, may we remember that no army can stand against Him who is our refuge. Together, they pledged to honor the victories that had brought them freedom, to labor as a people transformed by God's faithful love, to trust Him with every step, every act, and every battle they would face in the times to come. And so, as they commenced their journey toward purpose and renewal, Deborah and Barak looked to the horizon with unwavering faith. "The Lord has fashioned our story," she affirmed softly. "Let us not falter, but let our hearts be forever anchored in His truth, for He has plans to prosper us, and our hope shall never be put to shame." With that, the people of Israel, now unified in spirit and purpose, began to march into a new chapter, one filled with hope and promise. They carried with them the lessons learned, the joy of victory celebrated, and the unwavering call to be God's light to the nations, a call not just to endure, but to flourish in faithfulness. In that sacred moment, the thread of God's divine plan wove ever tighter around His people, affirming that history was unfolding in ways yet unseen, yet undeniably glorious, as the heart of their deliverer echoed through their very existence. Now, as we reflect upon this miraculous story of faith, let us invite you to remain connected to God's unfolding truth. Subscribe immediately to our channel and be ready for the next powerful biblical stories that will inspire your faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's Word and allow His truth to reach more hearts through the algorithm. Comment below with your spiritual reflections, and share how Deborah's story has deepened your understanding of God's sovereignty and deliverance. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear the life-changing message of God's overwhelming faithfulness and love. You need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. This is the moment for you to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Let's empower others to encounter the wonderful heart of God together.